The night was draped in a suffocating silence, broken only by the distant hum of city lights and the soft, uneven patter of footsteps on cracked pavement. A cold wind swept through the narrow alley, rattling discarded newspapers and stirring the sharp scent of rain lingering in the air. The street lamps flickered weakly, casting long shadows that stretched like ghosts across the uneven cobblestones. Under one of those flickering lights stood a woman and a little girl. The woman's coat was threadbare and worn, hanging loosely over her thin frame as if it could barely hold the weight of the world she carried. Her eyes were rimmed red, shimmering with exhaustion and a raw kind of fear that gnawed beneath her calm exterior. She clutched the little girl's hand, a fragile grip that spoke of desperate hope. The girl, no older than 7, wore a too large sweater that hung down to her knees, soaked from the drizzle earlier that had now turned into a faint mist. Her eyes, wide and searching, flicked nervously from side to side, as if expecting danger to leap from the shadows at any moment. Her small face was streaked with tears and dirt, and her blonde hair was tangled in wild curls that framed her pale cheeks. Suddenly, headlights pierced the gloom as a sleek black car rolled slowly into view. The vehicle's polished surface reflected the city's fractured neon lights, red, blue, and white, blinking in chaotic rhythm. It slowed as it approached the corner where the woman and child stood, hesitating for a heartbeat before pulling up beside them. The window slid down smoothly, revealing the face behind the wheel. Familiar, handsome, and calm despite the hour. Nathan Cross, a famous actor whose name flashed across screens worldwide, sat behind the wheel, a faint smile curling his lips as he noticed the pair. "Hey," Nathan said softly, his voice cutting through the night like a warm beacon. "You look like you need a ride." The woman glanced up, startled, her eyes meeting his for the first time. A flicker of hesitation crossed her face. Was it distrust? Relief? A desperate mix of both? The girl gripped her mother's hand tighter, her lips trembling. We're a little lost," the woman whispered, voice cracking. "I don't know where to go." Nathan's smile faded just a little, replaced by something deeper, a flicker of concern that spoke of empathy beneath the celebrity facade. He opened the passenger door. "Get in," he said gently. The woman hesitated a moment longer, then nodded. She lifted the girl into the back seat before slipping in herself. The car smelled faintly of leather and cedarwood, comforting and unfamiliar all at once. As Nathan pulled away from the curb, the city blurred past in streaks of color and light. Inside the car, the silence stretched taut, filled only by the soft hum of the engine and the girl's quiet sniffles. Nathan glanced in the rearview mirror, catching the woman's eyes once more. "What's your name?" he asked, voice low but steady. "Claire," she said, barely audible. "And this little one?" "Mia." The names hung in the air like fragile promises. Outside, the rain began again, soft at first, then heavier, tapping on the car roof like a nervous heartbeat. The streetlights flickered in rhythm, shadows dancing as if the night itself held its breath. Nathan's mind raced, questions swirling. How had they ended up here? Why were they out this late, alone and scared? The woman's tired eyes held secrets, pain hidden behind a carefully guarded wall. "Where are you headed, Claire?" Nathan asked carefully, hoping to offer more than just a ride. She swallowed hard, the hesitation deeper now, like a shadow pulling at her words. "I don't know," she finally said, voice trembling. "We don't have anywhere to go." The weight of her confession settled between them, thick and heavy. Nathan's fingers tightened around the steering wheel. For a moment, the city outside vanished, leaving only the three of them in this small, fragile bubble of light and uncertainty. Then, as the car rounded a corner, headlights appeared behind them, fast approaching, insistent. The engine's quiet hum was suddenly pierced by a sharp horn. Nathan's heart skipped. The woman gasped, clutching Mia close. The car behind them swerved suddenly, flashing bright lights and then, cutting dangerously close, a quick decision. Nathan slammed on the brakes. The world outside exploded into a chaos of noise, lights, and sudden movement, and in that instant, something broke. The screech of tires echoed through the narrow street as Nathan's car shuddered to a sudden halt. His heart pounded violently in his chest, adrenaline surging with the shock. The headlights behind them dimmed as the other vehicle slowed down abruptly, then veered off into a side alley without a backward glance. Nathan's hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel. The woman beside him, Claire, pressed Mia closer, her body rigid with a mixture of fear and relief. The girl nestled against her mother's side, eyes wide but trusting now, as if the brief scare had only deepened her need for protection. "Are you both okay?" Nathan asked gently, voice low but steady, trying to slice through the tension thick in the air. Claire nodded, swallowing hard. "Yes, thank you for stopping." Nathan gave a small, reassuring smile, but his eyes stayed alert, scanning the deserted street ahead and the shadows lurking just beyond the glow of the streetlights. Mia, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, looked up at Nathan shyly from the back seat. "Are you a real movie star?" she whispered, her voice a mixture of awe and disbelief. Nathan chuckled softly. "Yeah, I guess you could say that." The girl's smile was a brief spark of innocence in the tense night. Nathan's own smile faltered, though, as he watched her, a little lost spark, trying to shine despite everything. Claire glanced at him, her gaze searching. "You're different from what I expected," she said quietly. Nathan raised an eyebrow, curious. "Different how?" "Not cold, not distant," she explained, voice barely above a whisper. "Sometimes famous people seem like they're in another world, but you listen." He shrugged, feeling a pang of something he rarely let show, vulnerability. "Maybe because sometimes I want to feel more connected, like everyone else." The car filled with a fragile silence as the rain continued tapping against the roof. Outside, the city's pulse beat steadily. The distant honk of horns, the occasional bark of a dog, the faint hum of life that never truly sleeps. Nathan glanced at Claire again. "So, how did you and Mia end up here? Out on the street? At night?" Claire hesitated, biting her lip. For a moment she seemed to weigh the risks of telling a stranger, but something about Nathan made her feel safe enough to speak. "It's complicated," she began slowly. We were abandoned by someone we trusted." Her words hung in the air, raw and heavy. Nathan's grip on the steering wheel tightened slightly. "Abandoned?" "Yes," Claire said, voice cracking with the weight of the memory. "I was supposed to meet someone, but they never showed. And then we were left with nothing. No home, no place to go." Mia clutched her mother's hand tightly, eyes fixed on the dashboard, trying to disappear into the safety of her mother's presence. Nathan's gaze softened. "That's awful." Claire nodded, blinking back tears. "I'm trying to be strong for Mia, but sometimes it feels like everything is falling apart." Nathan felt a fierce protectiveness rising inside him, an impulse to shield them from the harsh world outside. This wasn't just a celebrity's chance encounter, it was something deeper. "I know what it's like to feel lost," he admitted quietly. "Not just physically, but inside, like no one really sees you." Claire looked at him surprised. "Really?" He nodded. "Fame doesn't mean you're happy. Sometimes it just means you're more alone." A flicker of understanding passed between them. Two people from very different worlds, connected by a shared vulnerability. Outside, the rain picked up again, droplets hitting the windshield like soft, urgent knocks. Nathan turned on the windshield wipers, the rhythmic swish filling the car. "We can find somewhere safe," Nathan said decisively. "Maybe a hotel or somewhere you can rest. No questions asked." "Mum," Claire hesitated, doubt flickering in her eyes. "I don't want to be a burden." "Not a burden," Nathan replied firmly. "Just someone trying to help." Mia looked up, a shy smile breaking through the exhaustion. "Can we have pancakes tomorrow?" Nathan smiled, surprised by the simple hope in her voice. "Pancakes? Yeah, I think we can do that." For a moment, the weight of the night seemed lighter, lifted by the fragile thread of hope weaving between them. As Nathan started the engine again and pulled back onto the street, Claire's phone buzzed softly in her coat pocket. She ignored it at first, then glanced down reluctantly. A message, no caller ID, no name, just a chilling text. "You can't hide forever." Her breath caught in her throat. Nathan noticed the sudden change, his eyes narrowing. "What is it?" Claire swallowed hard. "It's someone from my past." Mia shivered beside her, and the air in the car shifted again. Nathan looked ahead, determination setting his jaw. "We're not just giving you a ride, we're getting out of this, together." And as the city's night swallowed them back into its endless maze of light and shadow, none of them could know just how tangled their fates were about to become. The hotel lobby was quiet, almost sterile in the pale glow of the morning light filtering through tall windows. Nathan held the small room key loosely in his hand, the weight of the night's promise heavy on his shoulders. Claire sat on the edge of the bed, Mia curled beside her like a fragile leaf caught in a storm. The promise of pancakes still lingering in the air, a tiny flicker of normalcy in a world that had become anything but. But beneath the surface, unease simmered. Claire's phone buzzed again, the screen lighting up with another anonymous message. "We're watching. You don't get to start over." She swallowed hard, biting her lip, the panic rising anew. This wasn't just a threat, it was a warning, a tether to a past she thought she'd escaped. Nathan paced the room, running a hand through his hair. "Who are they?" His voice was calm, but edged with urgency. "What did you do?" Claire flinched, the question cutting deeper than expected. "It's not what I did," she said softly. "It's who I trusted, someone who promised to protect me, and Mia." Mia looked up suddenly, her small face pale. "Mommy, are they going to find us?" Claire forced a smile, wrapping an arm protectively around her daughter. "No one's going to hurt us, not while we're together." But even as she spoke, Claire knew how fragile that promise sounded. Nathan's phone buzzed then. Messages from his manager, paparazzi rumors swirling online about him being seen with two unknown women, speculations already running wild. The life of a public figure offered no privacy, no sanctuary. "We have to be careful," Nathan said, sitting beside Claire. "If your past catches up, it won't just be you in danger." Claire nodded, the weight of his words pressing on her. "I don't know who I can trust anymore." Nathan's eyes locked on hers, steady and sure. "Then trust me, for now." The room grew still. Outside, city noises filtered faintly through the glass, life going on, indifferent. Suddenly, a sharp knock at the door shattered the fragile calm. Nathan froze. Claire's heart leapt into her throat. "Who is it?" Nathan called out cautiously. No answer. The knock came again, urgent, insistent. Nathan exchanged a quick glance with Claire, then moved toward the door, a protective instinct flaring. He opened it just a crack. A woman stood there, disheveled, eyes wild, breath ragged. "Claire," she whispered. Recognition flared instantly in Claire's eyes. "It's Anna," she said, voice trembling. "She's from my old life." Anna pushed past Nathan into the room, collapsing onto the bed. "You can't run. They're coming." Mia clung to her mother, frightened by the stranger's presence, but trusting Claire's instinct. Nathan's jaw tightened. "Who's coming? What do they want?" Anna's gaze darted nervously toward the window. "Powerful people. People who don't forgive. They think you took something that belongs to them." Claire swallowed hard. "I didn't." "Doesn't matter what you say," Anna interrupted, voice low but fierce. "They want you gone, and Mia too." Nathan's mind raced. He was used to scripts, to staged drama, but this was raw, unpredictable, a real fight for survival. "We need a plan," he said firmly. "Somewhere safe, somewhere no one will look." Claire nodded, though her hands shook. "I don't even know if safe exists anymore." Anna looked at Nathan, her eyes hard but grateful. "If you want to help, you have to understand. This isn't just about Claire. It's about what she knows, about what she has." Nathan's pulse quickened. "What does she have?" Anna's voice dropped to a whisper. "Evidence. That could bring them down. But if they find it first, it's over." The room grew heavy with silence, each breath weighted by fear and determination. Mia tugged at Claire's sleeve, her voice small but insistent. "Mommy, please don't let them take us." Claire held her daughter close, fighting back tears. "I won't. I promise." Nathan looked between them all, the woman he barely knew, the child he felt compelled to protect, and the shadow of danger closing in. "This isn't just a ride anymore," he said, voice steady. "It's a fight." And as the city's morning light gave way to a gathering storm, the fragile thread holding them together snapped tight, binding them into a dangerous pact none of them could escape. The dim light of the safe house barely touched the peeling paint on the walls. A stale smell hung in the air, mixed with the faint scent of dampness and old coffee. Nathan sat at the small kitchen table, rubbing his temples. His usually steady hands trembled just slightly as he stared down at the stack of hastily gathered papers Claire had handed him hours ago. The documents were a mess, photos, bank statements, emails, all tangled in a web of deceit and corruption. Claire's evidence, if true, could topple powerful people. But it was also a beacon that drew danger like a magnet. Claire paced the tiny room, her shoulders tight, eyes darting nervously toward every creak or shadow. Mia sat quietly on the worn sofa, clutching a threadbare stuffed rabbit to her chest. Her innocence starkly contrasted the turmoil swirling around them. "We can't stay here," Claire said, voice breaking as she pressed her hands against the wall. "They'll find us." Nathan looked up. "I'm trying to figure out how to keep us one step ahead. But their reach, it's wider than I thought." Suddenly the room's only window rattled, a faint thud against the glass. Mia flinched, pressing her cheek against Claire's side. "Someone's outside," Nathan said, voice low but sharp. Claire grabbed Mia's hand, pulling her toward the back door. Nathan moved to block the front entrance, heart pounding. They froze as footsteps approached, slow and deliberate. The lock clicked. A face appeared, familiar and unwelcome. Tom, Claire's former partner in the mess she was running from. His expression was cold, hard. "Claire," he said flatly, "you really think you can run from this?" Claire's breath hitched. "Tom, please, we don't want more trouble." "Trouble?" Tom's lips curled into a bitter smile. "You brought it here." Nathan stepped forward. "Who is this?" Tom's eyes locked on Nathan, disdain flickering. "The famous actor playing hero. This isn't your world, man." Claire shot Nathan a warning glance, but knew they had no choice. "Tom, you don't understand." "I understand plenty," Tom interrupted. "I'm here to warn you. They don't want the evidence leaked. They want you gone, and now you've dragged innocent people into this mess," Mia whimpered, clutching tighter to Claire's coat. Nathan's protective instincts flared. "Get out! Now!" Tom laughed, dark and cold. "You think it's that easy? You're in deeper than you know." With a sudden movement, he stepped inside, forcing his way past Nathan. Claire's heart raced, panic threatening to choke her. "Tom!" she pleaded. "Don't do this!" But Tom ignored her, heading for the papers on the table. Nathan lunged forward, grabbing his arm. The two men struggled, gritty, desperate, a physical fight fueled by fear and anger. Mia screamed as the scuffle knocked over a lamp, plunging the room into uneven shadows. Claire grabbed Mia, pulling her toward the back exit. "Run!" she urged. Outside, rain began to fall again, cold and relentless, soaking through their clothes as they fled down narrow alleyways. Nathan's voice called after them. "Find somewhere safe. I'll handle this." Claire didn't look back. Hours later, drenched and trembling, she huddled with Mia in a small cafe far from the city center. The warmth inside contrasted with the storm outside, but inside Claire's mind, the tempest raged on. She reached for her phone, fingers shaking as she dialed a number she hadn't called in years. "Anna," she whispered when the line clicked. "Claire, are you okay?" "No. Tom's found us." There was a pause, heavy with unspoken fear. "We need help," Claire said. "I can't do this alone." Outside, the rain washed the streets clean, but the shadows lingered, and in the dark corners of the city, eyes watched, waiting. Claire sat in the quiet back room of the cafe, the soft hum of hushed conversations outside barely touching the tense silence between her and Anna. The air felt thick, heavy with the weight of unspoken truths. Mia, finally asleep against Claire's arm, breathed softly, a fragile peace that felt almost foreign after days of fear and running. Claire's fingers absent-mindedly traced patterns on the table, heart pounding, as she searched Anna's face for any sign of what was coming next. The tension stretched, a thin thread ready to snap. Anna's eyes flickered with something unreadable. Fear, regret, maybe guilt, before she spoke in a low, urgent tone. "There's something I haven't told you," she said, pulling a small flash drive from her jacket pocket and placing it carefully on the table. Claire stared at it, the small plastic object suddenly feeling heavier than any weapon. "What's that?" "This," Anna said quietly, "is the last piece of the puzzle. The evidence we've been chasing for months, but it's not complete." Claire swallowed hard, the words sinking in. "Not complete? Why?" Anna's gaze dropped. "Because part of the truth involves you." The room seemed to tilt. Claire's breath caught, fingers tightening around the edge of the table. "What do you mean? Me?" Anna nodded slowly. "You were never just a victim, Claire. You were involved, more than you remember." Claire's mind spiraled backward, trying to piece together broken memories. Blurred faces, shadowy meetings, promises whispered in panic. Things she pushed so deep that even now they felt like a stranger's nightmare. "I didn't want this," Claire said, voice barely above a whisper. "I never wanted to hurt anyone." Anna reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "I know, but the people hunting you believe you have something that could destroy them." "Something like what?" Claire's voice trembled, tears brimming in her eyes. Anna hesitated, then leaned in. "A file, hidden. You saved it somewhere, but you blocked it out. You don't even remember." Nathan entered quietly then, his presence grounding. His eyes scanned the room, settling on the tension in Claire's face. "We have to face this," Nathan said firmly but gently. "Waiting only makes it worse." Claire looked up at him, vulnerability flashing in her eyes. "I'm scared, Nathan. What if I can't find it? What if I fail?" Nathan sat beside her, offering a steady presence. "You're not alone. We'll find it, together." The room held its breath as the city outside pulsed on, oblivious, chaotic, relentless. Anna's voice broke the silence. "There's more. The people chasing you, these powerful figures, they've already started tightening the noose. Your old partner Tom isn't just after you, he's working for them." Claire's chest tightened, the walls closing in. "Why would he betray me?" "Fear," Anna said bitterly. "Or maybe greed. It doesn't matter anymore. What matters is survival." Mia stirred softly, a small whimper escaping her lips. Claire pulled her closer, whispering reassurances she barely believed. Nathan stood, pacing slowly. "We need a plan, not just to hide, but to fight back." Claire looked at him, her eyes hardening with a mix of desperation and newfound resolve. "Then let's find that file." Anna reached into her bag again, pulling out a crumpled map and marking a small, hidden location. "This is where we think it's hidden. But it's dangerous." Nathan nodded. "We don't have a choice." The three exchanged determined looks, a fragile alliance forged in fear and hope. As night deepened outside, the city's restless heartbeat echoed around them, an unforgiving reminder that time was running out. Claire closed her eyes, breathing deeply. The road ahead was uncertain, shadowed by past mistakes and threats, but one thing was clear: to save herself, Mia, and maybe even Nathan, she had to face the darkest parts of her past, and in doing so, risk losing everything she held dear. The rain fell in sheets, blurring the edges of the dimly lit streets as Nathan, Claire, Anna and Mia hurried through the labyrinth of alleys. Every droplet pounded against their soaked jackets and faces, mingling with the pounding of their hearts. The cold soaked deep, but it was nothing compared to the chill of the danger lurking just ahead. Ahead stood the old warehouse, dark, imposing and silent, except for the steady drip of water from its rusted eaves. Its cracked windows gleamed faintly like wary eyes, watching their approach. This was the place Anna had marked on the crumpled map, the hiding spot of the elusive file that could bring their pursuers down. Claire held Mia tightly, whispering softly, "Almost there, baby. Just a little longer." But even as the words left her lips, fear twisted inside her. What if this was a trap? Nathan's voice was low but firm. "Stay close. We don't know what we're walking into." Anna unlocked the heavy metal door with a practiced hand. It groaned on its hinges as it opened, revealing a cavernous interior cloaked in shadows. The smell of damp wood and old oil filled the air. Their footsteps echoed eerily as they stepped inside, each sound amplified in the silence. Suddenly a voice sliced through the darkness, cold and mocking. "Well, well, what a surprise." From the shadows emerged Tom, flanked by two men whose faces were obscured, but whose dangerous posture was unmistakable. Claire's breath caught in her throat. Mia whimpered softly against her chest. Nathan instinctively stepped forward, placing himself between the small family and their enemies. "Looking for this?" Tom taunted, holding aloft a small USB drive that gleamed ominously under the flickering overhead light. Claire's voice trembled but held its ground. "Give it to me." Tom's eyes glittered with cruel amusement. "You think this is just a file? It's bigger than you, Claire. You were never the mastermind, just a pawn in a game too dangerous for you to play." Nathan's gaze locked with Tom's, sharp and unyielding. "Let her and the girl go. You don't want this to end badly." Tom laughed, a dark, bitter sound. "Oh, I'm afraid it already has." With a sudden movement, Anna lunged toward Tom, trying to snatch the USB from his grip. But the two men beside him reacted swiftly, drawing weapons that gleamed with lethal intent. Nathan shouted, "Run!" Chaos erupted. Shots rang out, deafening in the enclosed space. Glass shattered as a stray bullet cracked against a crate. The air filled with the acrid smell of gunpowder. Nathan grabbed Mia, shielding her behind a stack of crates. Claire dove beside them, heart hammering. The world blurred into a frantic montage of danger and desperate movement. Claire caught sight of Tom raising his gun, aim steady and merciless. Without thinking, she pushed Mia behind her, taking the bullet herself. A fiery pain blossomed in her side, but she gritted her teeth, refusing to fall. Nathan's shout pierced through the chaos. "Claire!" She blinked through the haze, eyes locking on Nathan's worried face. "Find the file!" she gasped. Anna scrambled across the floor, crawling toward the USB lying near overturned crates. Her hands trembled, but she clutched the drive tightly. More gunfire erupted, each burst shaking the air and rattling nerves. Nathan fired back, his movements precise and protective as he covered Claire and Mia. Minutes stretched like hours, the firefight raging without mercy. Then distant sirens wailed, a promise of help or perhaps just a herald of more danger. Tom cursed and retreated into the shadows, his voice cold and threatening. "This isn't over. You'll regret this." As his footsteps faded, a fragile silence fell. Nathan rushed to Claire's side, carefully lifting her into his arms. Her breathing was shallow, but her eyes blazed with fierce determination. "We did it," Nathan whispered, voice thick with relief and awe. Claire shook her head weakly. "No, it's just the beginning." Mia clung to her mother, her small body trembling. Nathan held them both tightly, feeling the weight of what had been lost and what still might be saved. Outside, the storm began to ease. The first light of dawn crept over the horizon, casting a fragile glow over the ruined warehouse and the people inside. For the first time in a long while, there was hope. But the path ahead was uncertain, and the cost of survival was yet to be fully reckoned. The morning sunlight spilled through the hospital window in golden beams, bathing the quiet room in warmth that seemed almost at odds with the sterile coldness of the white walls. Claire lay resting on the crisp sheets, her breathing steady but shallow. the bandage wrapped tightly around her side, a stark reminder of the night that had changed everything. Mia, peaceful at last, slept curled beside her mother, small fingers entwined in Claire's. Nathan sat in the worn chair by the bedside, his hands folded loosely in his lap. He watched them both with a tenderness that felt new to him, a stark contrast to the flashing cameras and roaring crowds of his former life. The chaos of the city seemed miles away here, replaced by a fragile bubble of stillness. Claire's eyelids fluttered open, her gaze searching for Nathan's. When their eyes met, she offered a weak but genuine smile. "Thank you," she whispered, voice raspy from the hospital air and exhaustion. Nathan shook his head, his own smile softening. "No thanks needed. We all needed this. This chance to fight, to protect, to find something real in the mess." Claire's smile deepened just a fraction, the weight of the past weeks falling away for a moment. "I thought I was lost forever, but you helped me find myself again." Nathan's eyes softened, touched by the vulnerability he rarely allowed anyone to see. "Sometimes getting lost is the only way to realize where you truly belong." The soft murmur of nurses and distant footsteps was a gentle reminder that life moved forward, relentless and unpredictable. But inside this small room, there was peace. For the first time in a long time, Claire felt hope. In the days that followed, the evidence recovered from the warehouse became a weapon for justice. The powerful figures who had hunted Claire and Mia found their grip slipping as investigations unraveled their secrets. Tom's name faded into obscurity, a ghost of betrayal left behind. Yet beyond the courtrooms and headlines, something more profound had shifted. Claire discovered a community of loyalty and trust, fragile but real. Nathan, once a stranger who had offered a simple ride, became a steady pillar of support. Anna's courage reminded her that even in the darkest places, humanity could shine through. And Mia, with her bright eyes and quiet strength, became the heartbeat of their fragile new beginning. One afternoon, weeks later, the three stood together on a sun-drenched balcony overlooking the city skyline. The air was crisp and fragrant with blooming flowers, the noise of traffic and life below a distant hum. Mia clung to Claire's side, while Nathan's steady presence anchored them both. Claire breathed deeply, feeling the weight of the past months settle into something softer, less like a burden, more like a foundation. "We survived the storm," she said, voice steady but full of emotion. "Now, it's time to live." Nathan nodded, eyes reflecting the horizon's endless possibilities. Together, for a long moment they stood silently, three souls bound not by blood, but by courage, trust, and the fierce power of hope. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows that stretched and softened over the city, Claire felt a quiet strength bloom inside her. The story wasn't over. It never would be. Life would keep testing them, demanding more courage, more love. But they were ready. Whatever came next, they would face it, side by side, and in that there was a promise brighter than any spotlight, more enduring than any script. The future was theirs to write.